Units of the Syrian Arab Army confiscate a huge warehouse full of explosives in the old section of Homs. Iraqi troops eliminate more than 50 terrorists of the Islamic State in Diyala and Baquba. Ban Ki-moon stresses the vital role played by Russia in world affairs, especially in the Middle East. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. In Homs, a Syrian Arab Army unit has seized a huge warehouse which contained explosive devices during a combing operation in the ancient part of the city of Homs, including 5 explosive charges, each weighing 300 kilograms, and 15 120mm mortar shells and other 82mm shells, in addition to B-10, Johannam and handmade rockets. The Syrian Arab Army also eliminated a number of armed men in Kafarlaha and destroyed a bulldozer in Tal Abu Sanasil and several vehicles east of Jbab Hamad in Homs' eastern suburb. Several gunmen were also targeted in Tel Bise and the neighboring villages. The Syrian Arab Army continues its operations against terrorists, eliminating many of them, including non-Syrians, in Deir ez-Zor, Aleppo, Idleb and Deraa.
In Deir ez-Zor, the Syrian Arab Army has eliminated several terrorists belonging to the Islamic State, including non-Syrian, and injured others in a series of operations carried out against the hideouts and gatherings in Al-Huiqa, Al-Sina'a, Al-Rujdiyya, Jbeila and Al-Salihiyya. Among the terrorists, Bahij Adnan, of an Iraqi nationality, and Inad Suleiman were identified. In Aleppo city and its countryside, several armed men were also killed or wounded in Al-Hawut, Krum Al-Aziza, Dawar Ghayur, Al-Wadihi and Al-Sukkari. The Syrian Arab Army has meanwhile destroyed a warehouse of ammunition that had been used by the terrorists in Sheikh Mahmoud Farm along Al-Safira Al-Khanasir axis and eliminated terrorists in Ankash near Al-Safira. In Idleb countryside, several gunmen were killed or wounded in Bennish, the surroundings of Al-Arba'in mountain, Hmimat al-Dair, Tel Salmo and Abu Duhur. Casualties were on the other hand reported among the terrorists in Deraa and its suburbs, and an infiltration attempt was thwarted in the western neighborhood of Busra al-Sham.
Syrian Arab Army units continue to advance in Jobar, regaining control of several buildings and eliminating terrorists. Many of the buildings were burned down by the terrorists before their withdrawal. The Syrian Arab Army has moreover maintained control over the basements and tunnels in the area, which would consequently help the process of retaking over more buildings in Jobar. Many terrorists have meanwhile been killed during fierce clashes with the Syrian Arab Army units as others fled through the tunnels. Several explosive devices that were planted by the terrorists inside the buildings were, on the other hand, dismantled by the Syrian Arab Army's engineering units. As Australia raised the alert level to a high degree and predicted terrorist attacks on its soil, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott announced that the wide-scale inspection campaign by the Australian police in Sydney and Brisbane came after receiving intelligence news that the Islamic State was planning to launch attacks and kidnap Australian citizens in order to kill them in front of TV cameras. Australian authorities had announced earlier that the number of Australians who joined the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq has risen to 60 citizens. The USA has aborted a unanimous vote at the UN Security Council that condemns Jabhat al-Nusra for kidnapping 50 UNDOF soldiers of the Philippine and Fiji units working within the UN peacekeeping force in the Golan. The US insisted that the name of al-Nusra be not mentioned, thus denouncing what is merely called armed men. In confirmation of its stand in support of terrorism in Syria, the American House of Representatives voted last night in favor of President Obama's request to train and arm the so-called moderate opposition in Syria and the allocation of $500 million for this purpose, pending the final approval renewal of the House of Senate expected to be declared this evening. Welcome back. Iraqi forces continued to chase terrorists affiliated with the Islamic State in different parts of Iraq. The Iraqi military launched airstrikes against the gunmen in 3 areas adjacent to Mosul. The Iraqi troops, in cooperation with local activists, killed the prominent leader in the Islamic State, Sufyan al-Hajri. They also liberated a top-ranking army officer who was kidnapped 6 days ago in al-Basra. In the district of al-Dulu'iyya, the Iraqi army, in cooperation with local tribes, eliminated 28 terrorists affiliated with the Islamic State. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, in an interview with the American CNN network, condemned the crimes committed by the terrorists of the Islamic State. Rouhani pointed out that the terrorists want to kill humanity itself as they target innocent people and commit horrendous massacres. Rouhani wondered if American airstrikes would be enough, adding that Iraqi civilians could also fall victims to such airstrikes. Finally, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon stressed the important role played by Russia in the Middle East and the world. In an interview with Itar-TASS news agency, Moon referred to the strong ties between Russia and the UN, which preserve and protect the international law. He added that Russia, who is a permanent member at the UN Security Council, can always play a vital role in solving world problems, especially in the Middle East and Africa. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Karun Kürtcan, but after a short break.